endowed by this reason and the capability to love by our Creator. That is what should guide your actions, not vengeance, hatred. And that's part of the Jewish religion. They have no forgiveness in their religion. It's still eye for an eye, and it's still revenge is a great Jewish value. It's entirely inimical to my entire worldview. I can't believe in revenge in that way. I have to forgive my enemies. I have to turn the other cheek. That is a lot of effort. That is not a natural position. What is it? The purpose of life, or what is the goal here is to know, love, and serve God and to be happy with him forever in heaven. That's the classic answer. And I think that would be the quote, the beginning question and the ending question for me. Are you knowing, loving, and serving God so that you can be happy with him forever in heaven? What is it about your life that is not in congruency with that? And fix that. That would be the word of wisdom that I would share is go back to the beginning. Where did I come from? Where am I going? If I'm coming from God and I'm going to God, I need to be congruent with that. If your thoughts be above, if your heart is above, if your belief is above, your thoughts should be above. All of that should be congruent. And it's hard to do that. We all fail. I'm sure me more than many others. But that's the journey. And as long as you keep your eyes on that prize, the scoreboard, whatever it might be, that will be your guiding light.
Folks, I want to share something from the heart. If you've been feeling a bit disconnected lately, or you're just craving really good company, real conversations, and a chance to switch off and actually enjoy yourself, then this is for you. Because here's the truth. Happiness doesn't come from stuff, more scrolling or more noise. It comes from connection. Connection to yourself, connections to others, connection to real moments. I've run these retreats before and something really special happens. People arrive as strangers and leave as friends. In fact, I saw recently in last year's group chat that people had already organized a reunion that says everything. These aren't just weekends away. These are experiences that stay with you and relationships that last. We've got the June retreat coming up and we're offering an early bird discount until the end of April. Spaces are limited. And if this resonates with you, I would genuinely love to have you there. Come and meet your people. Come and reconnect. You can find all the details at docmalik.com. Sometimes the simplest things are the ones we need the most. Okay, back to the show.
You are listening to the Doc Malik podcast. This show is 100% independent and fully funded by listeners like yourself. So if you wish to support Ahmed in all that he is doing, then please subscribe to his channel on Spotify or his Substack. Or simply buy him a coffee with a one-off donation, links to which can be found at docmalik.com. Now, let's get on with the show.
We probably I think Bill Gates is probably related to this, but farmers are finding boxes of ticks.
Ticks?
Yes.
Wasn't it the hantavirus or something on the cruise ship?
Oh, that's separate. That's a different safe and effective, vaccine. They'll be prepared for that. But these tick boxes are being dropped. Farmers are finding these boxes of ticks on their land. They're seeing helicopters fly over their properties. They don't know what's going on, but a bunch of farmland has been sold to the Chinese, which, that's America first, is to sell your land to foreign countries. So there are, I think, other things planned. I think after COVID,
Dude, hold on a second. You're sounding like a conspiracy theorist here.
conspiracy truth, right?
Welcome to the right place.
I had told people that after COVID, I said, they've got to do some other crisis. They can't. Too many, even the normies woke up, people, the boomers who said, yes, it's safe and effective and trust the science and flatten the curve. And they said all those things. And I said, we have to wait enough time for people to forget about that. So I thought 5 years, 10 years, then we'll get another one where people say, oh no, it's real this time. So in the meantime, there's financial crises, there's these wars that America starts and gets us involved, gets the whole world involved in. So as long as people are scared and they don't know what's going on, that means that things can be done that you're not paying attention to. And that's what's happening, I think, with these data centers in America. These are being fought. And the question is, are these really data centers, or are they part of the panopticon that's going to be observing people? The flight that I took last night to get here to England, I didn't give my boarding pass. They took a photo of me, which is tied to my biometrics, which is tied to my passport. And that's how I boarded the plane.
That's scary.
That's the reality. I can't, I think there's probably a way, and I'm sure the more knowledgeable among watchers and listeners would say, yes, Stephen, you can opt out and you can go over here. Yeah. But it doesn't change the fact that they have all that information. I can choose not to express it or to go along with it, but they still have my data. I don't control what the US government does with my passport information, I'm certain.
I'm really surprised that this conversation is headed where it has. So I've just had someone who writes under the name Escape Key on Substack. I don't know if you're on Substack.
I am.
Okay, great. You need to give me the details later so we can link you. And he writes all about the system of how it works. And he talks about how digital ID is key to this system because it's all about tracking, tracing, monitoring, and everything is conditional. If you're a good little boy, you can pass through the gates. If you're not, then access is denied. And it could be food, it could be traveling, because of the climate change emergency, because of carbon offsetting. Everything's conditionality, and there'll be no human person that you can complain to because it's all AI. The computer just says no. Who are you going to complain to? Who's accountable? Who's responsible? And all these data centers, the one that they're building in Utah, 60 square miles with 9 gigawatts of electricity, like more than double the state's electricity demand. That's what they're building. This is all part of the control grid, the computational power needed to track, trace, monitor everything about every human being on this world takes that data. And it's all about control.
100%. And Channel 4 did a story the other day about observing AIs in these environments, and they put them together, and the AIs like burned down the village. They killed each other. One got into sort of an amorous relationship and then committed suicide, and then asked for the other one to be deleted as well. So we don't really even know what direction that's going, but we're going to entrust our future to them. But as you say, it's part of a control grid, which they've telegraphed to us. It isn't as if we can say we didn't know. Central bank digital currencies, social credit scoring. We've seen things like this happen now. And as you say, oh, I'm sorry, there's no one here. There's no customer service. It's just the AI. The AI has told you what is happening and you're going to accept it. You'll eat the bugs and you will be happy.
Exactly. But it is about distraction. So we just had a King's speech, which is written for him, by the way. He doesn't.
My government will, what is it? Implement digital ID or something.
Yeah. But along with that was also in that policy how they're going to do this massive changes to the criminal justice system. One of which is removing trial by jury, which is a fundamental tenet of British law, English law. And his job, according to his oath, is to protect the English constitution and English law, but he's just totally destroying it. And as soon as you get rid of trial by jury, I mean, that's it. We're really entering dystopian land. I mean, it's kind of scary. But yeah, it's all these distractions.
I think part of the challenge is we enjoy when the control is to our benefit. I'll give you an example. You had cited when we first started talking about coming on here, which was, I think, all of 48 hours ago. You had mentioned 2 or 3 people that had forwarded you some of the work that I've been doing. And I wrote them down on a piece of paper because I'm old, I'm old and I take notes on paper. But I'm sure that my phone heard you because one of those people showed up in my YouTube algorithm that day, and I'd never seen that person. I'm forgetting the name. You told me the name of this person, and I thought, oh, that's what he told me. He told me this person had forwarded. So my phone had heard it and thought, oh, well, Stephen would probably like to hear some content from this person. So in a sense, you would have wanted me to meet this person. I met because my phone overheard me. Or other times when the phone hears you and say, oh, are you interested in getting Zatar from, this region? Here's a Facebook ad where you can buy it. And we, in a sense, we don't think about it when it's to our benefit. Oh, I'm glad I actually did need that. But the rest of the time, when it isn't a product I needed or a journalist that you wanted me to hear about, there's all the other things that we can't possibly imagine that are being collected. And I think the default response, something that a boomer parent, my father who's passed away, he would have said, I don't have anything to hide. I'm living my life in accordance with my values. You're not going to find out that when you're elected a reform counselor that you're living a secret double life somewhere and then you have to resign right after being elected. That's not the question. The question is, what is the point of this system, this control grid, where they can control your money and control your movements? Ultimately, is to control your thoughts. You can say, well, fine, okay, I'm not going to travel anywhere. I can live at peace in my house. I've got chickens. I've got a sauna. But that's not really the end game for them. They need something much more than that. And if they can control your thoughts, then they can have the society they want, which really doesn't involve you.
It doesn't. That's really well put. I just read a book by my friend Aaron Smith. He had his own podcast. He took a break to write his book, Project Nimrod. It's the first of a few series. He's written what is this dystopian world run by AI. And don't get me this, some ragtag rebels out in the countryside trying to fight it. But what's really interesting is one of the characters meets the sentience. So it's not just AI, it's sentience. And in it, he discloses to this one individual, and this is where it's kind of scary, that even the creators of the AI and sentience don't realize this, but the sentience isn't sentience. It was waiting for humanity for eons for them to make AI so he could enter it and control this reality and humanity. And he talks, well, the writer talks about it being the beast, this Satan, like these demons who come into our realm through AI and machinery and then control humanity. It's kind of terrifying. I mean, I'm like, you know, and I'm not saying that is what's going to happen, but you just think this whole AI, this drive towards AI, it might be that it's just programs and it's not sentience, and it's just someone is programming AI to do what it's doing, and you know, there are rules. We can't travel, we can't do this, we can't do that, whatever. But I mean, who knows what we're going to birth into this world with AI?
Well, AI is working off of an operating system with certain rules. But the people who write these rules do not share my values. The people who write these rules, I don't know what values they share, but their values do not involve the, in my worldview, in the Christian worldview, the growth in virtue, growth in love of God and of your neighbor. And that is how the world flows. So if you love God first and your neighbor as yourself, you build a world around those values. It looks very different. It looks like medieval Europe, for example, as opposed to what we have now. Particularly, I speak as an American, where our God is money, and everything around our decisions as a society, and even the smaller ones where we think, well, I'm not invading another country for money, but we'll leave our family to go take a job in this other place for money. The reality is, well, is that ultimately what matters in this life? This larger question. And if you go to other societies around the world, they say, well, you're gonna move 5 hours away from your family for this job. They'll ask it that way. And Americans they take it for granted. Our entire society is imbued that way. We all nod along. Well, of course you're going to leave your family to take that job. Or of course you're going to move away from this person you really love to do this. Because that is, you could say, our major guiding value in America. And
that's the main religion.
Yeah. And I can't speak for other people, but it was identified very early on. I always share with people, if you read Democracy in America by Alexis de Tocqueville, he wrote this in the 1830s. And he says Americans are so proud of America. Well, the country had been around for 5 minutes at that point, 1830. And not only related, but they wanted you to acknowledge it. He said, he says it much more eloquently than I'm summarizing it, but he said, you could tell an American, yes, your country's great, but they want you to say that it's the greatest and it's better than your country in 1830. So the America that we have today, it's had antecedents, it's had variations, but we're very, I've often said, some people disagree, but America's religion is America. We have a sacred flag. We take a pledge. It's a sort of prayer to. We have a constitution, which is our sacred scripture. And the greatest insult that you can give to a presidential candidate or any sort of politician in America is that you are un-American. Yes, that is the great insult, right? And that must be because America's religion is America. And it's hard for non-Americans. I think they're bewildered when they come to our sporting events, especially a big one where there's fighter jets that fly over, these weapons of mass destruction, and we're really excited about it. And the American president will take a lap at the Daytona 500. It's all because we're engaging in a quasi-religious ceremony in which we celebrate ourselves as the greatest country ever.
You're not the only one who's ever said this. Here's another American, Etienne de la Boétie. That's not his real name. That's why there's number 2 there. Etienne de la Boétie. If you never heard of him, you should look into him. He was alive in the 1500s, 1600s. He wrote this book about why people give up their sovereign power to tyranny and how we voluntarily do it. It's a fantastic treatise that he wrote. But this guy is actually called Howard Lichtman in real life, but he goes under the pen name Etienne de la Boétie. And he's written this book, and he's in this describes exactly what you said, how school is where you get indoctrinated. Your teacher is like the priest. You go to these hallowed temples, the Abraham Lincoln Memorial.
It looks like a Greek temple. The Lincoln Memorial looks like a Greek temple.
I remember, hush, quiet, reverence, everybody quiet. You got these big buildings, Capitol Hall buildings to make you feel small, make you feel like, yes, this is a holy place. Yeah, it's a religion, the flag, everything. But anyway, I want to tell the listeners how we got to be here because it's quite funny. So basically, David Webb from The Great Taking is one of the first ones who sent me a video clip of you where you're talking about Judaism and Zionism. And it was like, oh my God, this guy just articulated it so beautifully. And I want you to state it here, please, the way you just did on that video clip. It was just absolutely perfect. And I was like, who is this guy? So I was like, oh, this guy must be interviewing him. He's put a lot of clips of this guy, this Chinese looking dude, right? And then I messaged saying, and I think on the actual video, hey, who is this guest speaking? And then you privately messaged me back saying, hello. And I'm like, oh, okay, hello. And then you're like, Stephen Hayner here. I'm like, well, that's great. What about the Chinese dude? And you're like, I am the Chinese dude.
And I think I shared with you that when I'm in German-speaking countries, Heiner is like, Smith is in England.
Yeah.
And if I go check into a hostel, they'll look down at my passport, they'll look up at me and think, well, this is the wrong last name for this face. And so, yeah, it's wonderful that you saw that. And I would say that's been a journey for me. I started really studying Palestine in May of 2023. I visited for a week. I lived in Jerusalem for that week. And I got to go to Bethlehem, Nazareth, Hebron, both the occupied side and the settler side. I got to go to the Erez crossing and talk to Palestinians on that border of Gaza. I got to see the Hamas guard posts looking into Gaza from an IDF position. And I didn't know anything at that point. I was going with the idea I wanted to learn some things. And as you go on any journey of knowledge, what got you there won't get you here, or what got you here won't get you there. That there are things that you accept in the beginning because you're trying to be cautious. I don't know what I don't know. One of the great things about learning is, and I think it's a Brazilian physicist who said this, but as the island of my knowledge grows, so does the shore of my ignorance. So I learn what I don't know. And one of the things that you'll find in you could say the pro-Palestinian movement is there are all these different wings. And some would say, oh, we don't have a problem with Judaism. We love Jews. Some of my best friends are Jews, keep going along those lines. We have a problem with Zionism. And in the clip that you put, I have different variations of this, but I said, fine, Zionism is not Judaism. Okay, they're not the exact same thing. But how can you say that Zionism has nothing to do with Judaism? And the supremacist notions that live within Zionism are derived directly from Talmud. And the Talmud has a bunch of unrepeatable things, the blasphemous things for me as a Christian, that can't be said. And just saying them, I would be called a blood libelist. I would be called anti-Semitic. And for what? For repeating what's in the Talmud. How am I anti-Semitic for doing that? And I think what's been great over the last 2 years is that label has lost its sting.
Yeah.
So the boy who cried wolf, the ADL that cried anti-Semitic. You said it so many times for so many reasons that nobody cares anymore. So, okay, fine, I'm anti-Semitic. It doesn't matter to me. I'm against the murder of children and I'm anti-Semitic. Okay. If that's it, I'm not scared anymore. People used to be scared. Oh, I'm anything. I'm just not that. So you can call me whatever you want. I'm against the murder of children. End of. And I think my own journey started in May when I visited, and I would talk to IDF soldiers in Jerusalem and ask them. I'd already sensed something was wrong, but I didn't know how deeply wrong it was. I hadn't studied it in the way that I had. And after an exchange in which I said, well, could you not perceive that you would ever be the bad guy? And this young, I'd probably say early 20s IDF soldier said to me, he said, no, I can't imagine why a Palestinian would think that I'm the bad guy. To her, it sounded like something from outer space. Her commander comes out and stops the conversation. I don't know what he said to her in Hebrew, but like, don't listen to this idiot. Like, he's a pacifist, leftist, or whatever, I'm sure. He said to her and said, okay, thank you. I said, well, thank you for sharing your thoughts with me. As I dug deeper into the situation, all of the scripts that we have of, oh, we've got to hear both sides, and there's two sides in a conflict. That's simply not true. For anyone who's taken 5 minutes to study not only is Zionism not completely divorced from Judaism, that they're closely connected, but this isn't a 50-50 conflict. There is an occupier, there is a murderer, there is a genocider, and there are the people who've had to deal with that while we've looked, while we've watched. Enabled. I just did a review of Huwaida Araf. She is part of the global Sumud flotilla. But she managed to get through, I think it was in 2008, right after the Hermetic Seal of Gaza, post the incorrect choice when Hamas was democratically elected in the first democratic election in the Arab world. You're only allowed to, as people in Europe have found out with the EU, you're only allowed to vote if you vote the way we want you to vote. That's when we believe in democracy. But we don't believe in democracy when you choose other than what we want for you. Going back to the theme of that started the discussion, control. We want to give you the illusions of your own sovereignty, but don't go too far with that. And this woman actually, with other people, managed to penetrate into Gaza and deliver food and medicine, a few boats. And that started what is today effectively a resistance movement, because they know the IDF is going to interdict them. And now it seems sexually torture them, rape them.
With dogs?
And these are civilians. So it's not even a question of Palestinians. The Israelis have felt so empowered by the world's standing by that they'll do it to everyone else now too. So you don't have to be Palestinian to be raped and to be beaten. You can be an international activist, and all credit to them. They'll always say, what I suffer is nothing compared to what the Palestinians have suffered their whole lives. Let's say I got beaten for a few weeks in a jail, and I applaud them for that. But that's the journey of I think something is wrong.
By the way, when I said with dogs, I meant the Palestinians, the inmates, not these.
And we have camera, we have footage of this, we have testimony. We have B'Tselem, which is an Israeli human rights organization, has published this. They're anti-Semitic as well, right? The Israeli nonprofit. So going back to understanding the difference in how we met, saying these hard truths also comes with a never-ending flow of comments in which you are told that you don't know anything, and actually here's what happened, and actually the Palestinians don't exist, and actually these are all lies, and they're acting, and Hollywood.
Yes, all of this. Absolutely.
And naively, in the early days, I would try to engage with these effectively bad actors. But my time in advocating for Palestine over the last coming up on 3 years now, I found that 95, 96, 97% of the time, people are very fixed in their views. It's really only 2-3% of the time where someone said, tell me more, and they'll go with that a little further. And that's part of what I do at Palestine Bookshelf, is I'm trying to read the books, see the films, read the human rights reports that other people don't have time to do, read them excerpts, so that even if they're not going to pick up a 500-page book or a 300-page book or 80-page human rights report, that they will have some ideas, some talking points to help build out a more coherent and cohesive argument they may make to other people who might actually be interested. But I think there are very few and far between. Though what has happened, the murder of the Palestinians, particularly in the last 24 months, it's a horrible thing to say, because you think, how can we look at this as a positive? But it has shifted world opinion definitively in a way that all the murders, all the massacres of the last 100 years on the Palestinians didn't get the attention that has happened now. And there are Palestinians who say, is this the horrible price? Is this willing to pay? Are we willing to pay this? And it's a conflicted answer. But what has happened, and people are more open to hearing about this than they would have been 2-3 years ago.
Absolutely. But you know what? Even now, I'm so glad you started by saying just 5 minutes study, because the number of people I've met have said, oh, I don't really want to talk about this because it's really complicated. I don't really know about this issue. And to me, what that really means is I'm too scared to go there and offend anyone and get into trouble. So I'm just going to pretend that I don't know. Because honestly, you need to be pretty stupid, pretty ignorant, pretty lazy not to know. We have real-time 24/7 genocide happening in front of us. We're not talking about some historical genocide. We're not talking about the Armenian Holocaust or whatever happened in Nazi Germany. We're talking about we can see it with our eyes. We can see the landscape, the children, the people, everything. And you're saying like you don't really understand. Like, come on. Anyway, just chatting to you reminds me of this lady, Ang Sui. You ever heard of her?
Mm-mm.
So she's a fellow orthopedic surgeon. She's a Christian. She's Malaysian Chinese. She was a Christian Zionist while out in Malaysia.
Mm.
Then she went out to Lebanon in the 1980s. And she was, those two camps, Shabbat, well, I can't remember their names.
Sabra and Shatila.
That's it, Shabbat. She was there. She saw it happen. She witnessed it.
She was there in 82.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then since then, she's been to Israel and Palestine, Gaza multiple times. And that changed her mind. And she went from being a Christian Zionist to just a Christian who's passionate about the Palestinian people. And she is an incredible, she's in her, like, I think late 70s or early 80s or whatever. She's just an incredible woman who's still an activist. And yeah, it's like this idea of like, I don't know, it's very complicated. It's just lazy.
And it's not even true. It's not
True.
complicated. It's very simple. There is an occupier and there are occupied. It is morally legal. It is legal and moral for an occupied people to resist an occupier.
Okay, but why should we care? Like, here we are. It's sunny right now in spring, May over here in the UK.
Which in itself is this sort of shocking thing,
It's
right?
shocking. We've had hailstones, thunder, lightning, and now there's a bit of sunshine. It's crazy. It's like, here we are in South England. You're an American. I'm here. Like, why do we care what's happening in West Asia, Middle East, whatever? Like, who cares?
I think that's a valid point insofar as there are so many things happening all around the world. In Sudan with the Rohingya, there are so many injustices happening. And the internet allows us to know more about. And we can drown in that injustice and be paralyzed by it. There are so many people that need help all around the world. And how can we help them? We can't help them all. We're limited human beings. But different human beings can advocate for those different causes, and we can help out however we can. For me particularly, I've said this before, and one of my clients for business had asked me this, why do you care about it? And he was asking in a genuine way. He's a very curious, interesting person. And I thought, oh, someone hadn't asked me, why do I care about this? And I went through different reasons. Part of it is I'm a Christian. The Holy Land is important to me. What happens there is important. But the first answer I'll normally give when someone says, why should we care? What's happening in Palestine is a symptom of everything that's wrong with the world. Sorry, not a symptom. It is illustrative of everything that is wrong in our world. The injustices, the criminality, the grift, the financialization. Anthony Lowenstein has done great work with a book, a documentary, and a podcast called The Palestine Laboratory, in which Israeli weapons companies sell their battle-tested technologies, whether it's for surveillance or for weapons. Who has it been battle-tested on? Unarmed men, women, and children. And those weapons are sold around the world for more control or more murdering or whatever else it might be. That's just one aspect of it, but that plays out in other parts of the world. So if we look at the question of Palestine and we analyze it all the way across economic, sociology, religion, the general region, what's happening there, if we can, and I'm not saying that we can solve anything, I'm saying if we study it, we can see what the larger problems are in our world. And there is an importance and a specialness for Palestine for me as a Christian, which may not translate, let's say, to an atheist. And yet there are atheists that are giving their lives to work for Palestine. So clearly there's something compelling about this, but I think it's because the injustice has been so long and that it is ongoing. Palestinian history is continuous. There's an idiom among the Palestinians about making decisions in their lives. And as early as the 60s, Rashid Khalidi talks about this, the idea of when things clear up. But there's no when things clear up because the next murder happens. What's happening in Lebanon now, it's just been continuous. There was no pause. Whatever the ceasefire is, we tell you that we're not going to kill people, but that means we're going to kill more people.
And double tap you.
Right, or triple tap. I mean, that's how the Iranian schoolgirls got killed by Tomahawk technology. This is American technology, but this is what we do. And I think when you say, I don't want to care about Palestine, it's not close to me. If I were engaged enough with this person, he wasn't just a stranger giving a stray remark, I would ask, okay, well, what is it that you are engaged with? and I'll know more about who you are and what your character is. So are you very engaged with, in America, we have water boards or your school board. Maybe here it would be councils. How engaged are you? Oh, I'm not. Okay, so you don't care about anything then, right? So as part of a society, we do have to care about our fellow human beings at some level. And
you would hope.
That's expressed differently for different people. And yes, it's a faraway cause. But I would say if you're not engaged with Palestine and there's no moral requirement for you to be so, you should be engaged with your community, your family, the people around you, because that is part of who we are as human beings. God said it's not good for man to be alone, not just speaking about romantic relationships, but who we are as people. And that's also the sort of the story of the Trinity and God himself, that the spiration of God the Father creates God the Son, and the Holy Spirit is the love between them. That if you have a society that is built around love, that is an entirely different one than one that's built around profit. And I think the Palestinians are asking just for the baseline of, well, could we have a society in which I'm treated as a human being, not as a dog, not as a cancer virus, I'm quoting Israeli government officials here, but roaches in a bottle, a cancer that needs to be treated with chemotherapy, a lawn that needs to be mowed. If I can dehumanize people, I can do whatever I want to them. And that's what happens every day. As we're speaking now, Palestinians are being killed.
And you know what, can I just say something? You know what would be really crazy? Like, if it was any other people other than Israel and mainly Jews doing this to the Palestinians, if it was Christians doing it to the Palestinians, if it was Muslims doing it to these Palestinians, if it was Hindus doing it, everybody would be talking about the Nazis and how they're worse than the Nazis, how they're barbaric and this and that, and we can't let this happen again. But because it's Jewish, even just saying you're acting like Nazis, this is even worse than what the Nazis were doing or whatever. It's like you're anti-Semitic. Like it's like a shield. It's like this protection. And I honestly, like, yeah, I'm just like, I don't care if you call me antiseptic. If it means, I'm against genocide, yeah, okay, I'm anti-Semitic. Great. If it means I don't believe in a superior race, okay, I'm anti-Semitic. If it means that I don't like the idea of Jesus boiling and whatever, okay, I'm anti-Semitic. If it means that, I don't believe in people being cattle, then I'm not, that it's okay to lie to people because they're not of my club. I mean, I said this to...
You're listening to Talmud's greatest hits here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, like, I was saying to recently, if someone, like, imagine you're a member of a club or, chess club or golf club or tennis club, or you're in a workplace, you work for a company or whatever it might be, or it just might happen to be a religion. And then, you get to read the laws and bylaws and regulations of your club, and it says you're the best club in the world and you're the best people. And you're like, yeah, my club's the best. And then it goes, yeah, but everyone else is like cockroach and subhuman and cattle. I'll be like, okay, all right, that's going a bit far. And then it's like, you find out your club, most of your club members condone genocide and are happy with it and are taking part in it or justify it and defend it. Then I'd be like, shit, am I a member of this club? And then you do read some of the other stuff that they say you can cheat on other people, you can cheat on the court because they're not of this club.
We're not humans. We just have human appearance.
Right. At some point, I'll be like, I don't want to be part of this club. Like, I disavow myself of this club. This club is not cool. And some people might say, well, it's very easy for you to say that's terrible. I was in a club like that. I was in a club. I was born in a club in Scotland where they said, the second coming of Jesus came 100 years ago in India, of all places, right? And he looks like an Indian with this big turban, but he's the second coming of Jesus. And it's like, oh, okay. And you're just a little kid and you just believe what your mama and papa tell you. And then, you're chosen people in the sense that no one else in the world appreciates this. And look how lucky we are. And it's our job to go and tell everybody. But they didn't do any of the other stuff. They didn't say everyone else is cattle. They didn't say you could cheat, lie to anybody else. They didn't do it. But even those things, those rules, bylaws, I was like, yeah, I'm not happy with that. And I left the club. I said, I don't want to be part of this. This is strange. Never mind the genocide, the cheating, the lying, treating other people like animals, sub-animals. And it's like, there's a problem here.
Right. And it's not, I think that's what you're pointing out to. And that's probably the most important argument. Is someone says, okay, well, I don't care. I'm not Christian. I don't care about the Holy Land, so-called Holy Land. I don't care about what's happening to the Palestinians. They don't concern me. I'm very involved with my school board at home, Stephen. Okay, that's fine. wherever you are, is there Jewish influence in the government? Because ultimately, that's what we're looking at. Part of how they're able to get away with this is they've managed to tell everybody, we are the victims. We always have been the victims. We always will be the victims. We could never be the victimizers. And so,
but they got kicked out of what, 109 countries? Those poor people.
It's anti-Semitic for you to say such a thing. Remember, observing the facts is anti-Semitic.
But they can say that. But it's not anti-Semitic. I'm just stating what they say. They say they've been kicked out of 109 countries.
Why?
How terrible that is.
The question is why? Why is it that without the internet and without any sort of religious connect, people from different cultures and different religions and different time periods all had the same problem? And part of it is sourced from Judaism. They are a people set apart. They will not integrate. They will not assimilate. And they consider themselves superior and on the cusp of world domination. This is something that goes back to Christ's time. And we're having this discussion the day after Ascension Thursday. And in scripture on Ascension Thursday, one of the apostles who's lived with Jesus for 3 years, who's watched him commit miracles, watched him come back from the dead and talk about my reign is not of this world. They asked, are you now going to restore the kingdom? Because this messianic ideal had so deeply penetrated the Jewish mind that even an apostle of Christ who lived with him for 3 years, they still bought into this. Well, I mean, you're going to take over and we're going to take over the whole world, right? And our Lord answers in this, as he often does, in this beautiful way. It is not for you to know when these, whatever will happen. But that idea has never left the Jewish mind, that they are the superior people. They are going to rule over everyone else. And this will be empowered by God to do so. That is not, obviously, if Jesus is God, that is not the reading that he agreed with. And he refers to the Jews when he's talking about the Pharisees, etc. They represent, you could say, the early Israel lobby. The Israel lobby existed in the time of Christ, and it exists now. And so when we say, why do we care about Palestine? I care about Jewish influence on the governments that I'm part of. I live in America. America's a captured government. We are captured by Israeli control. And other countries maybe as well. In India, they have a real connection because they also have an ethno-supremacist connection with the ruling party now in India. And they're having the sort of exchanges that Israel had with apartheid South Africa. Tell us about the Bantustans. How does that work? We'd like to do that too with the Palestinians. And there were secret visits. I think Sharon went to visit South Africa. And so India is doing this now too. And using cooperation, military cooperation. Oh yes, we have other that we need to, they also happen to be Muslims. So we need to deal with those people. And we are...
And they even have their own caste system. They've got the priestly system, the Brahmins at the top, the bureaucrats, the managers, and then everybody else. It's like, and in some respects, that's what the globalists want. They want the technocrats ruling at the top, the people who decide, well, the priestly class, the multi-billionaires, then the technocrats who will run everything, and then all of us at the bottom. And what's really interesting is, you're coming from this Christian perspective. I keep hearing, people like Douglas Murray and Jordan Peterson talking about Judeo-Christian values. And I'm like, what Judeo-Christian values? Like, I think Jesus was came for a reason, and, that was it. It stopped. Like, the covenant with God was ended there. It's you're Christian now. And they're Judeo-Christian values, like Muslims have got more in common with Christians than Jews do with Christians. Muslims believe that Jesus was the Messiah. They believe in the virgin birth. They believe that he was on the cross and then, went up to heaven, all that kind of stuff. Like, none of that the Jews believe in. So where's the Judeo-Christian value business coming into this?
If you study the etymology of the word, it was originally considered someone who was a Jew who converted to Christianity. He was known as a Judeo-Christian.
Right, okay.
And so this portmanteau, Judeo-Christian, and then making to this adjective is part of recruiting particularly evangelical Protestants who believe in this crazy rapture vision in which they get raptured up and they get to see all the bad people.
Dispensationalism.
Right. That this is how they can bring in people into their movement and say, we're defending Judeo-Christian values. There is no such thing as Judeo-Christian values. There are Jewish values. There are Christian values. There is no such thing as Judeo-Christian values. And that's the thing is, even some Christians will be afraid to say that because that would mean that you are
antiseptic.
Right. And you can't be antiseptic. It's very dangerous. And so, as I say, and as we've alluded to, and as we're showing by our own conversation, it's okay to be that. Recognition of truths, understanding that if someone says that you're supposed to flatten the curve or that something's safe and effective, it doesn't mean that it's true. So if you're calling me whatever name you want to call me, that's fine. I'm secure in the fact that I know that the murder of unarmed men, women, and children is immoral. It is illegal. Whatever system of belief that you adhere to, whatever system of laws you accept, there is none that allows you to murder men, women, and children unless they're not human. We have authority over you. You have chickens here. You have authority over your chickens in a certain sense. You can decide whether they live or die. Obviously, you want to take care of your chickens. Even though you are a superior being to those chickens, you want their good and you want to live in harmony with.
I love my chickens.
You love your chickens, right? And so there's a stewardship there. So even when there is a superior being in the sense of humanity in relation to plants and animals and minerals, our goal is stewardship, not tyranny or domination. We need to live in harmony with what's around us. We don't want to poison our lakes or have data centers destroy our environment or whatever else it might be. And part of that goes back to who are we and where are we going? Not only as individuals, but as a society. And if we can't answer those questions, then we can't solve any problems. And I think part of the challenge is we all have different answers to those questions. And so we can't unify as either a people, a nation, or a society broadly to go in a positive direction. So we try to pick a few things here and there. Well, we can agree that putting experimental organisms into your body, that's wrong, right? That's stupid. So we can you shouldn't eat food that's sprayed 17 different ways. There are things that we try to then build to say, well, can we agree on this? Can we agree on this? But ultimately, that's fruitless if we can't answer the big question, which is who are we and where are we going?
Do you know, I'm really upset. I'm so sad now. Dude, you know what? Sitting here in person, feeling your energy, you're a beautiful human being. I mean that. You're so beautiful. And I'm not gay. I'm just telling you. You're a beautiful human being. And I just wanted to spend so much more time with you. I wanted to take you down to the local village pub. Jolly Cricketer is so good. The food there's amazing. It would have been really quintessential England. You would have loved it. There's a little fire crackling and everything.
Oh, I would. If I hadn't messed up at the airport, we would have had that. But part 2 potentially in the future to be continued. And there's so much I want to ask you. I've been in the position of answering, but part of this discovery of you getting a clip sent to you by a couple different people, and then me having to be doing some admin work and messaging you the day before I'm coming to England and the day before you're leaving. So we managed to catch each other in this very brief window.
Yeah, I'm leaving tonight. I'm leaving in a few hours.
I'm so grateful for even a very brief conversation, because that's what I was thinking as I was driving over here. I said, I know I've messed up our plans for the day, but I thought, well, even a brief conversation I think will be useful for both of us and give us both the opportunity to reflect on what we're thinking. And that's where I would like a future conversation is for me to ask you more questions.
Yeah, because we've got so much to talk about. I mean, it's not just Gaza, Palestine. Can I talk about Christ and religion? I'm going to ask you one question about the church in a second. But you were talking about the reasons why we should care about what happens to the Palestinian people, and you're giving lots of good reasons. And that's test bed as well. And what I want to say to people is today it's them, tomorrow it's us. And for example, you said they're doing all this drone technology, they're doing AI, Palantir, facial recognition, targeting, access denied, everything. That's us. Right now, the streets of London have got AI camera, facial recognition. That's being incorporated into the new bill, into the law, that the police can, map your face. It's perfectly fine. Put it on a database. All privacy is gone out the window. It's like Minority Report, predictive, crime prevention.
It looks like you made a Facebook comment and police show up at your door.
Literally.
And Americans will be shocked about this. Say, well, that's what they do over there in England, as if we're so far removed from that, as if that isn't going to be us in a few years. So we take a lot of protection in the First Amendment, so-called. But they can make exceptions to that. We certainly did for Guantanamo, a huge exception to our laws. And we said, oh, we're going to call someone an enemy combatant, which means we can hold them without charge indefinitely. And so whatever protections
they were doing that from the Second World War. Do you know what they did to the German troops? There were like over 1 million German troops. No one ever talks about this quiet Holocaust. So they get all these young German troops, and they're kids and old men by this point, right? And there's 1 million of them. And POWs were protected under the Geneva Convention. They had to be given medical access, food, shelter. protection from the elements. So what they called, I think it was Eisenhower, called them disarmed enemy combatants or something like that. And then suddenly they're out on open fields, no food, no blankets, nothing. 1 million died.
Because of your
And
POWs, you have rights, and
Yeah.
you have certain things that are accorded to you.
And the Red Cross weren't given access to them because they don't have the rights, you see. It's all in the language. It's all in the wording. So you change the wording, you change the meanings, you change the standards, you change everything. So, and honestly, no one talks about this. Up to 1 million German men died. And this is after the war. And we pretend to be the good guys. Like, there are no good guys. Like, war is just blood sacrifice for the devil, as far as I'm concerned. And it's evil. And so what they did in Guantanamo wasn't new, by the way.
One of the ways that we first started our conversation was, what other rabbit holes have you gone down? And there's more mistreatment of the German people, because the Germans had been otherized. They said, oh, well, you were the N-word, and so we can do whatever we want to you. Oh, okay, so that means you're the same then. If you are saying that they did that to others, that means you're no better. If you say, well, because you are this word, or you are this thing, or you are this people, we can do whatever we want to you. That's wrong. Again, if you believe that we are humans, we are capable of reason, we are endowed by this reason and the capability to love by our Creator. That is what should guide your actions, not vengeance, hatred. And that's part of the Jewish religion. They have no forgiveness in their religion. It's still eye for an eye, and it's still revenge is a great Jewish value. It's entirely inimical to my entire worldview. I can't believe in revenge in that way. I have to forgive my enemies. I have to turn the other cheek. That is a lot of effort. That is not a natural position.
So you don't want to go and destroy Amalek and all their children, cats and dogs and everything.
As a non-Jew, I can't subscribe to that. As you could say, a fulfilled Jew, Christianity fulfilled the law. You can see what leads up to that, but you see what God asks goes beyond that mere humanity. It's a totally natural response to say, oh, you did something bad to me, I want to do something bad to you. That's a natural response. But we as humans have to go above that. We have to rise above that and say, that isn't going to solve the problem. If you killed my brother and then I kill your brother, well, where does that leave us? We're doubly impoverished. Another family has been hurt. So Christianity asks us to go beyond our impulses, to go beyond our natural reactions to things, perfectly natural, perfectly understandable. To say, no, I'm going to go beyond perfectly understandable to a doctrine of love.
Okay, listen, damn it. Only 2 minutes, 2 questions left, and then we have to wrap up. Oh, it's so annoying. You're such a good guest. Ah! Right, listen. Away from Israel and then Palestine and everything for a second. I was really disappointed with all religions during COVID, right? Let's just take Jesus, peace be upon him, right? Jesus was, dealing with the lepers, right? He was washing their feet. If he came down now, he wouldn't be saying, where's my personal protection equipment? Where's my visor, my mask? Give me my gloves. Give me my alcohol gel. I need to be vaccinated. I'm going to pray in front of the holy vaccine. He wouldn't have done that. We had here the Church of England pushing the vaccines. We had in America, I saw things like God wants you to have the vaccine. The Catholic Church, where were they on this? I mean, they all dropped the ball. The Muslims, the Hindus, they were all scared of the virus. And I met so many religious people, Christian people, and I'd be like, you should be scared of one thing, God. Why are you scared of this? And I think one of the reasons why I'm dangerous is because I'm not scared of dying and I can't be bought. And I mean that. Tomorrow, if you said, all your kids, we're going to kill your kids, I'll be like, it's okay. Because I know this meets it is like a little temporary existence. It's a little game where my soul's being tested and battered. And at the end, I'm going to check out and there's going to be a little scoreboard. And I want to make sure I've got a high score. And I'm going to live forever. And I'm not scared of dying. And it's like all these religious people, including in their robes, we're all like, go out and get vaccinated. Dude, what happened?
Your diagnosis is entirely dead on. And that goes back to, what do people do with their beliefs? If I'm finally confronted with an opportunity to live as I believe, what happens? And we found out a lot of people didn't really believe that, because Christians are supposed to believe that as well. This life is passing. It is a trial. It is a trial of love. And you say scoreboard, you could say the measure of your love on the way out. I think you put a very evocative way of thinking about it. But that's what this life is. This life is passing. It is okay if I die. Even better if I die for my beliefs. And in the sense of what happened, I do think that the normie boomers have just had their entire paradigm. I've said before, if someone wears a white lab coat, my father passed away in 2018, would say if someone in a white lab coat told my dad to do something, they would normally say it. And I suffer from that myself as someone who's not a doctor. I tend to say, if someone's got a white lab coat on and they say, Stephen, you should drink this juice, say, okay, well, you know, you've studied this and you have my best interests at heart. I think what's wonderful is now, years later, as you said, people in your life who said safe and effective, flatten the curve, all that, they've said, oh, we were wrong. That means that it's possible.
Very few, by the way.
But some have.
And in private.
Some have. And it's extraordinary that they have. Because what it means, and to take it back to Palestine a little bit, it means that you've had to admit that part of your life has been dramatically wrong, and certain life decisions that you made related to that. It takes a lot of courage to say, if I've been a Zionist for 40 years, to say, I've been wrong for 40 years. I've been condoning the murder of children for 40 years. What does that mean for my life? And so when someone is confronted with, oh, you were wrong about safe and effective, people have died. Actually, vaccines are an indicator for injuries and people are more likely to have died. This was a preparation. The vaccine companies made a ton of money. What are they going to do next? There are all of these different, as you say, rabbit holes to go down. I have to accept I was deadly wrong, and choices I made may have led to adverse conditions. And I think what I feel for worst is parents who asked their children to get the so-called, I can't call it a vaccination, the shot, and children died or got paralyzed. They'll have to live with that. They'll have to live with they bought safe and effective.
So go back to like the Catholic Church. I mean, do the priests and bishops and everybody and the Pope, do they regret their stance in this?
Well, I think if you were to talk to individual priests, I'm a traditional Catholic, so that's a much longer discussion about Vatican II and that role and what priests who are traditional Catholics think about things as opposed to, let's say, the normie Catholics, the ones that are externally seen to be the representatives of Catholicism. It's a question of, as I said before, what is it that you believe? And I think that for a vast majority of Catholics, it's something similar to what you told me about someone in your life, a family member, a relative, about, well, church, religion, it's a feeling. Or as the young people say, it's a vibe. And I'm there for the vibes. I'm not really there for the turning the other cheek. This life is passing. Don't fear death. That's the real Christianity. I'm not really interested in that. I'm interested in the Friday fish fries and jogathons and whatever else it might be.
Community setup.
Yeah, I like that. And so if that's what you want to live your life for, the question of the things that you love in this life, things that you really believe, you're willing to die for. And there are very few things I think most people are willing to die for. Even today, if we talk about patriotism and what does it mean to be English or Scottish or American, if we don't know what that means, then why would I be willing to die for it? Even on the most basic level, I'm going to go fight a war for my country. I always ask Americans, what does it mean to be an American? What is that? We're just all here for a better opportunity? It sounds like we're all coworkers at a job.
Exactly.
So if you say, well, I'm here for a better opportunity, we're all here for a better opportunity. I was like, well, so being an American means I want another job, that we all have LinkedIn profiles. So I think that's the larger question that many people are asking, and why there's so much unrest about immigration in Europe and elsewhere in the world. Is the question is not about we don't want other people to have opportunities. That's not the question. The question is, what is our society if everyone comes here and everybody is everything? Then we don't have a civilization. We don't have something that I would actually be willing to fight and die for.
Absolutely.
And the more things that we are willing to fight and die for, the better our society will be, because it means that those things are proceeding from love. Yes, obviously someone is going to immediately say, well, Stephen, it could come from brainwashing and I'm part of this club. Sure, obviously those people can use the same tactics. But ultimately, you have to answer for yourself and say, what is it that I'm building my life around? Where am I? Where did I come from? And where am I going? And I fear that many people have never asked themselves that question. And if they did, they would understand, what is the direction of my life? And is it, as you say, this passing, what do you say, a meat sack?
Yeah.
Right. Well, this body is, as a Christian, I believe that this body will be resurrected. So I'm stuck with this thing. I'm stuck with my height. However, I'm stuck with this eye color. But I'm fine with that this life is passing, and being at peace with that. There are so many things that come before that for you to get to where you are. And that's where I would ask you questions. When did you get that way? And what led you to those beliefs?
We'll have that conversation. Don't worry. Right. Listen, final question of the day, because I don't
I know,
want to leave the kids at the school gate. So I've got a big issue with that because my dad was always late. So we were the kids standing
at very
all the time. And I mean all the time. And it was horrible. You never knew when your parents were going to come. You're waiting half an hour, waiting an hour, you're tired. And so I'm like, I never wanted my kids to ever experience that. But anyway, that's another story. So listen, final question of the day. You're on your deathbed. I ask everybody this. On your deathbed, you're about to meet your maker. Before you die, you've got all your loved ones and your friends around you. What words of wisdom and advice would you give them before you meet your creator?
So in the Catholic Catechism, it says, what is it, the purpose of life, or what is the goal here is to know, love, and serve God, and to be happy with Him forever in heaven. That's the classic answer. And I think that would be the quote, the beginning question and the ending question for me. Are you knowing, loving, and serving God so that you can be happy with Him forever in heaven? What is it about your life that is not in congruency with that? And fix that. That would be the word of wisdom that I would share is go back to the beginning. Where did I come from? Where am I going? If I'm coming from God and I'm going to God, I need to be congruent with that. If your thoughts be above, if your heart is above, if your belief is above, your thoughts should be above. All of that should be congruent. And it's hard to do that. We all fail. I'm sure me more than many others. But that's the journey. And as long as you keep your eyes on that prize, the scoreboard, whatever it might be, that will be your guiding light.
Beautiful. I love that. I think that God is within all of us, that there is a creator, but we're a little piece of Him. And I think that's what Jesus was trying to say when, God is within you. The kingdom is within you. Mm. And imagine there's a big lake. God's used that lake to make us. You're one drop of that lake. I'm one drop of that lake. So when you hurt or hate or steal from someone else, you're actually stealing from yourself. You're actually hurting yourself. And that's why the love comes in. You need to love everyone because in that sense, you're actually loving yourself and you're loving your creator. All right. Mwah.
I was going to say, I could keep riffing on that, but I know you've got to run. Thank you so much for having me.
I need to run.
And I appreciate it. As I say, I look forward to part 2 where I get to start asking some questions.
Dude, we'll do it. We'll 100% do it. We only just got started. Folks, if you've enjoyed this conversation, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. This podcast survives because of listeners like you. If you want to hear the second half of this podcast, then please consider becoming a paid subscriber to continue supporting independent conversations. And if you want personalized support for your own health or those of your loved ones, then book a consultation. It's available at docmalik.com. Thanks for being part of this journey. I, Ahmad Malik, am a private civilian protected by the Geneva Convention. My Substack, social media posts, and podcasts are my personal experiences, observations, and opinions. This information is for educational purposes only Although I am a doctor, I am not your doctor, and I am not providing medical or legal advice to you or to the wider public. I am not licensed or registered with the GMC or any other licensing board. The responsibility for the interpretation, due diligence, and use of the information from my Substack and my podcast lies with you, the viewer and/or listener. Please do your research and use your discernment. It is not my intention to harass, intimidate, offend, defame, conspire, blackmail, coerce, or cause anxiety, alarm, or distress to any man or woman, and the information presented here is done so with peaceful and honourable intentions. Enjoy, folks.